Hello, I'm Austin the Brimstone, and welcome to episode 4 of Shrek Toy Collecting History. Well, we've made it, the final Shrek film, as of now, minus the two Puss in Boots films, but those didn't even have toys. So this was the last Shrek film to get a big toy launch. Or did it? Because, as you'll see, a lot of these toys didn't even release at all. So this is a very different episode. Playmates Toys got the Shrek license for the final film, which was called Shrek Forever After, or was it Shrek the Final Chapter? Or was it Shrek 4 3D? Was it Shrek Goes Forth? Okay, so this movie went through a lot of name changes. You may remember it as Shrek the Final Chapter. The modern DVD calls it Shrek Forever After. And I like Forever After, so that's the name I'm sticking with. And it's also the name on my swanky McDonald's hat here. Yeah, McDonald's went all in with this movie. They had the Shrek Shake, which apparently was the greatest shake ever for the moment and a half it was available. And they gave us some great figures. McDonald's practically made the Shrek 4 toy line. But we're not here to talk about McDonald's toys. We're doing stuff that was released in stores. So if you went in-store to buy Shrek 4 toys, what could you get? Well, apparently not much, because I only own one Shrek 4 figure, and these toys are notoriously difficult to find. So I'm gonna say some of these toys in here are unreleased, but I may be wrong. It's possible that these toys are produced in such small quantities that I simply was not aware of them being released. So if anyone has experience collecting Shrek 4 toys, let me know in the comments. But we're gonna get right to it. Playmates Toys, an amazing action figure company. Let's see, they gave us Ninja Turtles. How about the Star Trek toy line? That was an awesome line that covered literally hundreds of characters. So with Playmates having Shrek, surely they would give us the whole Shrek world in action figure form, right? Well, no, they didn't. They gave us just a bunch of disconnected scales of toys and nothing really unifying them all together. I looked for any information on this line, and it didn't have a product launch like the previous lines. It wasn't even shipped to most retailers. I actually don't know where you could buy these toys because in 2010, I was toy collecting. I actually remember buying quite a few of the fantastic How to Train Your Dragon toys that Dreamworks released right around the same time as these. And you could find those readily available at Walmart. And then Toys R Us had the Megamind toys. So Dreamworks had a toy presence at this time. But Shrek in 2010, I don't know where you would have got these. Maybe comic shops, hobby shops. Entertainment Earth obviously had them on their site, but they debuted at Toy Fair in what I dub the saddest Toy Fair booth I've ever seen. Yes, this was Shrek's big presence at Playmates booth. He's just kind of stuffed in a corner behind a window next to Rainbow Bright. Shrek, you deserved so much better than this. There was an online press kit that was given to toy retailers that advertised all the great things you could buy for Shrek Forever After. And it seems like the centerpiece of this line, what Playmates really wanted to build everything around, was this Shrek, it's called the Bug and Grub activity set. And this seems to be some kind of messy, make-your-own bug toy, kind of like those lab sets they sold for years where you could make your own little monsters. I don't really know if the bugs are to be played with or eaten. I guess we'll never know because this toy actually never released. Yeah, so the centerpiece of this toy line never hit shelves, so we're off to a great start here. And honestly, this set looks pretty generic. I think it's really disappointing that this messy bug play feature was not incorporated into the action figures. Usually when you have a big deluxe set you want to sell, you'd build it into the toy line, but instead this is just a one-off piece. It almost looks like, if anyone remembers the Uncle Milton educational sets, they used to do these with movie tie-ins like Indiana Jones and Star Wars, where it would essentially be a STEM toy, a science and learning thing, that was vaguely connected to the IP. And that's what this kind of looks like. It looks like a learning toy that's branded Shrek, but I mean, I can't even properly review it since it never came out. As for the action figures, they were called the Swamp Buddies, and they're definitely a step down compared to previous lines. The first three Shrek movies, even with different companies behind them, all gave us 6-inch figures, and Playmates went for a smaller 4.5-inch scale, and that's fine, that's what Playmates makes, but they also made the figures very stylized. So Shrek looks very chunky, he's kind of hunched over, and they almost look like Funko figures, but kind of in this weird middle ground where they're not stylized enough to be cutesy, but they're also realistic, but not super detailed. So they look very off-model. It's kind of a weird balancing act that Playmates kind of failed, where I'm just not feeling the look of these, but we got Shrek, Donkey, Fat Puss in Boots, which is the new version of Puss in Boots from this movie, Gladiator Gingy, and Rumpelstiltskin. So with Shrek 4, we got new versions of all the main characters, since the majority of the movie takes place in an alternate timeline. Yeah, Shrek actually beat Marvel and DC to the punch with the multiverse. Shrek 4 is a multiverse film, and already I see a huge problem with this line. See, Shrek 4 is much more action-oriented than the other Shrek movies. It's gothic and dark, and all the characters have action designs. Fiona's a barbarian woman warrior. Even Shrek gets like these gauntlets and he's got like a hammer. Donkey's all mangy looking, and those versions of the characters would make excellent action figures. Heck, we finally could have gotten an Ogre Fiona figure, because she was much more action-oriented. You would have had no problem selling that in a boys' action line, but Playmates skipped traditional action figures altogether and gave us these weird, stylized versions. And only Puss and Gingy are the alternate universe versions. Shrek and Donkey are just regular Shrek and Donkey, which is really disappointing. These figures also have a gimmick. Yeah, they couldn't just sell you figures on their own. They had to have some gimmick, and this time it's ooze-related. Playmates with their Ninja Turtles and their ooze. Each figure came with a jar that you would put them in, and then slime the jar, and shake the jar up and down, and watch the figure get oozed. So, if there's any of these figures out there that were opened, they're probably all gross and covered with ooze. I don't hate that gimmick. I get that it's a kid's line, and kids love slime, but maybe for Shrek 2, something like sliming the figures would have worked, because you have some, let's be honest, unexciting characters like Charming and Fairy Godmother who needed a toyetic gimmick, but Shrek 4 was the one movie that didn't need toy gimmicks. The character designs sell themselves. I mean, look at all the Ogre warriors we could have gotten as action figures. It would have been like Shrek Motu. It would have been awesome, but instead, we just get these slime figures. I would like to track these down. If there's anyone I'd love to have, it's Rumpelstiltskin. The chunky stylization works best with him since he's already pretty goofy looking in the movie, so it's not that obvious. Like, I could just put this Rumpelstiltskin figure right with my McFarlane and MGA Shrek figures, and he would look fine. He also comes with his alternate wigs. Kudos to Playmates for doing that, that's fun. Then we got the Smackbacks, and the Smackbacks are a little closer to 6-inch figures. I have Shrek here, and they're these strange kind of mixed media figures where they've got plastic heads, hands, and even feet, but the tummies and bodies are squishy so that they can talk. Unfortunately, over a decade later, Shrek no longer talks. And the Smackbacks included Shrek, Donkey, Gladiator Gingy, and Puss in Boots Fat. So, the same characters, even less of them. But I gotta be frank, I like these more. Even though they're more plush, they actually are closer to the 6-inch figures. They're definitely to scale with them, and I actually really like this Shrek. He's quite nice. It gives us a different version of a 6-inch Shrek. The sculpt is really good. I love how even with a plush body, the proportions are great. Like, the fact it's plush really doesn't affect the figural sculpt. Like, look how nice the tunic looks. I mean, dare I say this is one of the nicest plush toys I've seen. And if you take this Shrek and you put him with the McFarlane Fiona beanie, they look quite nice together. And this figure's really on model. I love the shade of green they used here. It's absolutely perfect. I would love to have the rest of these smackbacks, but unfortunately, I don't believe any of them released. I've looked for this line for years, I kid you not, constantly refreshing eBay, and I have only ever seen one Shrek. And I bought this the moment it was listed. As soon as I saw it, my heart stopped and I immediately bought it. Something that's also neat about this figure is his shade of green. I mentioned it being perfect. It's a little lighter than other Shrek figures, and overall, he just looks a little more yellow, and that's intentional because Shrek Forever After saw the Dreamworks Shrek movies get an engine upgrade. They actually upgraded the animation of Shrek and gave it better lighting. So all the characters just look a little brighter, a little more lively, and that is reflected in this figure. So this one's a total winner, and I hope the rest of these were released, but I'm not counting on it. Then we have the Ogre baby figures. These are pretty similar to the smaller baby dolls that MGA made for Shrek the Third, except this time around, they are a little older because Shrek's babies are toddlers in the fourth film, and they're finally named. I think it's funny that all of the Shrek the Third toys just call them Shrek's babies, but for the fourth film, they were named, and we got Felicia, Fergus, and Farkle as cutesy baby figures. And because they had to have a gimmick, the figures wet themselves. Yes, really, they wet themselves. I guess little girls like, cleaning up baby pee, but I'm also a little confused on these because there weren't any other baby dolls. MGA went all out with the whole Shrek Babies line, but Playmates just made these three figures, so I'm wondering, would these have been stocked on the action figure aisle or the girls' doll aisle? Guess I'll never know. Oh, and Farkle never released. So yeah, you can't even collect all of Shrek's kids. Only Felicia and Fergus came out. They were the first wave, and then Farkle would have been shipped later, except he wasn't. I can't find any photos of Farkle. It's only Fergus and Felicia. Great. Got some plush. We have Shrek, Donkey, Toddler Felicia, and Sir Squeakles, this kind of ragdoll ogre that is Felicia's favorite plush from the movie. This is actually a great plush because it's a prop replica of an item that is important to the film. I'm not really feeling the, again, stylized look of these plush. Shrek and Donkey look pretty bad. I don't know why Playmates had to stylize everything for this line. But I love the Sir Squeakles because that's a prop replica of a key piece from the movie. That's Felicia's favorite plush. In the film, Shrek holds onto it. He keeps it when he jumps into the other timeline that doesn't have his kids. And when he finds the plush later, we get a very emotional scene where Shrek realizes he's stuck in a universe where he never had children. And that doll is the only connection he has to his kids. Very poignant and emotional, and that would be a good piece to have for a Shrek costume. So that one's fun. And finally, we have the minis. Yeah, I'm really not feeling these, but Playmates went all out, and we did get quite a few of these sets. We got Shrek and his family, Shrek and friends, Shrek and storybook characters, Shrek and the Ogre Army, and Shrek and the Witches. Hey, this is Austin from the editing room, and I noticed that this set is called Shrek and Rumpelstiltskin and Friends on the back of the packaging, but toy websites and catalogs list it as Shrek and the Witches. So what it's actually called is a complete mystery that we'll never know because, surprise, surprise, this set was unproduced. Really a shame, as I love the figure of the witch melting and the great Pied Piper, who's a fantastic villain in this movie. Just another awesome Shrek 4 toy we'll never have. So everyone in Shrek 4 is covered for in this line. We even get all of the new characters like Brogan, the John Hamm ogre. Anyone remember him? Fiona as an ogre warrior. Cookie. Come on, who remembers Cookie? It was Craig Robinson as an ogre. But as much as I love these characters and designs, I mean, heck, we even got the Pied Piper in this line. I'm just not feeling these minis. They're not to scale with the Shrek 2 minis, which were like really tiny and had the big playset. These ones were a little bigger. The closest thing I could compare them to is a Squinky. Who remembers Squinkies? Those were popular around the time of this movie, and I'm wondering why they didn't just make Shrek Squinkies. But as they are, we get these detailed minifigures, but the details on them are off. Like, Fiona's in a red dress for some reason, and some of them, like the Big Bad Wolf, just look nothing like the character. These minifigures are really bad. I don't know what happened with the sculpts. Maybe they looked better because they were probably sculpted at a bigger size and shrunk, but the execution is just not here for Playmates, a company that usually delivers on minis. But if you do want to collect all of the alternate Shrek 4 timeline, you can do it in this line. We even got a deluxe playset in the form of the Ogre Disco Attack Ball. A great scene near the ending of the movie where the ogres all form this big ball out of their shields, and the ball breaks away and they all attack. Unfortunately, that's not quite there with this toy. It's just a plastic ball that opens up full of figures. It doesn't have that cool gimmick where the shields make up the ball. Maybe if they had been a bit bigger, we actually could have had shield accessories that form the ball, but as it is, it's just a thing you can buy. And I love that the box of this has you clipping it to your belt, like you're gonna carry around your Shrek 4 minis in your little disco ball. Excuse me, just walking around town with my Shrek 4 minis, like. And that was all Shrek wrote. That's the Playmates line. A bunch of disconnected, disjointed product lines with nothing cohesively tying them together. And I can safely say, out of all the Shrek movies, this is by far the most disappointing toy line. At least with Hasbro, McFarlane, and MGA, they did put their best ogre foot forward and try to give us a lot of fun toys. Even if some of them didn't work, they were fun toys. But Playmates, I don't know what they were thinking. These mini figures are just not fun at all. There's no reason for them to be mini because they don't have anything to interact with other than a disco ball that's ridiculous. The one promising line of figures didn't even fully release, and then we got some slimed figures, like, who wants those? It's really tragic that McDonald's wins the award for Best Shrek 4 figures. They made the only thing close to articulated and collectible figures, and after Playmates dud of a line, that was it. Despite being one of the most popular animated characters of all time, Shrek would never grace the store shelves again in toy form. We have gotten 2 Puss in Boots movies, and the Shrek movies themselves only continue to get more popular with time. This is truly a timeless franchise. And while we have had more collector-focused figures, like U2s and Funko, none of them are toys. We don't see Shrek action figures on store shelves, just collector-focused stuff. And I would love to see the day I could go into a store and buy a nice articulated modern Shrek action figure with all of the modern articulation and improvements in toy design. But it is really impressive how many action figure lines Shrek did get. I mean, 4 major toy companies for one license is really crazy. And each company has their own strengths when it came to designing Shrek. It's truly fascinating how the same character can be made as a figure over and over again, and yet every iteration looks different. I only talked about the main companies that were doing figures for these movies, but there were loads of side figures, one-off dolls, all sorts of stuff. So let me know in the comments, what's your favorite take on Shrek toys, and which movie had the best toys? And how long is it going to be till we see a modern Shrek action figure line? Who knows? Well, that's all I have to say today. I will be talking about the Funko Shrek figures. I've gotten a lot of requests for those, so stay tuned. Thanks for watching.